Today we're at Petroglyph National Monument. Specifically, we're at the volcano's day use area, still located within Albuquerque, New Mexico. The volcano's day use area provides trails to 5 volcanoes, and it looks out over the city of Albuquerque, out towards the Sandia Mountains. The volcanoes are important to Petroglyph National Monument because they begin to tell the story, the geologic story. About 200,000 years ago, a fissure formed, a crack in the Earth's crust, and hot, molten lava poured out in a series of 6 volcanic eruptions, some spreading a couple of miles to the east. As these eruptions took place, they flowed out over layers of alluvial soil that were here in the Rio Grande Valley. And as these layers hardened, they hardened into basalt. And so what we've got here is a 17-mile-long curvilinear escarpment of black basalt boulders on which we've got over 24,000 petroglyphs. So while we're here at the volcanoes, the story of Petroglyph National Monument isn't just about a single petroglyph or petroglyph concentrations. It also includes the volcanic cones and the mesa top that spreads out towards Albuquerque. The Pueblo people would come up to the mesa top. We have evidence of them carrying water and farming. Sometimes they would send their children up here to keep the rabbits away from their crops. So we see many ancient trails up here, and this becomes part of a larger spiritual landscape that's important to most Pueblo people. We're here at Boca Negra Canyon, about halfway along that 17-mile escarpment, and we're going to be walking on the Macaw Trail. What we see here is a volcanic escarpment. It's 113 feet tall. These black boulders once came from several sheet flows from the volcanoes. Boca Negra Canyon is the easiest place to see petroglyphs, and most of our 150,000 visitors stop here first. And this is one of the first petroglyphs that people who come to Petroglyph National Monument might see. It's a carving onto the rock. And Pueblo people would use stone chisels and hammers to peck, abrade, incise, and carve out the dark black patina, exposing the light color of the rock, which varies from a gray to a light brown to sometimes a red. Some people ask us how these petroglyphs were discovered, but for the Pueblo Indians, they're as old as time. They've known about them since their creation stories. Modern-day archaeologists date most of these images from about 1200 to 1650. A few are older, those which are done by early Spanish sheep herders who were out here as part of the land grants. In the 1970s, archaeologists came out to the West Mesa and began to inventory these images. Later, interest in these grew, and eventually it became a national monument. To the Pueblo people, they believe that the petroglyphs choose when and to whom to reveal themselves. Sometimes it's the shadow, sometimes it's the glare, or sometimes it's just the attitude and the sensitivity with which we look at these petroglyph images that reveal themselves. Sometimes telling people not to touch the petroglyphs is not enough. We know that nobody should touch the petroglyphs, but we do give people an opportunity to touch an artificial boulder that we've created for such purpose, so they get the touching out of the way. We want people to understand that these are sacred images and they continue to be important to the Pueblo people. Eventually, over time, a patina will form, and that's what's meant to happen, but till then, we ask people not to touch these images. Petroglyph National Monument is one of the few national park units that's actually owned and operated not solely by the National Park Service. Petroglyph National Monument is managed by the City of Albuquerque and the National Park Service, and we work together with the city to help protect and preserve these resources for the future. In the last 20 years, we've had several challenges: land acquisition, being everything for everybody, the creation of trails, vandalism, the construction of roads through the monument, the expansion of a general aviation airport, but probably our biggest challenge is stormwater runoff from upstream suburban development, because we're completely surrounded by the city of Albuquerque. As you walk the trails of Petroglyph National Monument and you're looking along the escarpment, you might notice large concentrations of black boulders, and that's where we often see concentrations of petroglyphs. We're in the heart of Piedras Marcadas Canyon, where there's a dense concentration of petroglyphs. We have documented over 24,000 petroglyphs within the monument boundary. Piedras Marcadas Canyon is home to 5,000 of them. We see an animal over here. We're not really sure what it means. Something that looks like a sheep brand and maybe a cross. Those might have been carved by early Spanish sheep herders. I see something that looks like a bird and some unidentified animals up on that rock. Here we see a concentration of boulders with many hand images of different sizes, some of which have an additional appendage. The Pueblo people believe if a child is born missing a finger or with an additional toe, that's a sign of power. With a concentration of hand images here, we have to wonder why. Maybe it's because people passed through this way. Maybe this is a type of a calendar. We don't really know. Only the people who carved these images know for sure. What we do know is if we followed the arroyo from the heart of the Piedras Marcadas Canyon, we would end up in the Piedras Marcadas Pueblo, an 1,100-room adobe multiple plaza structure located on the Rio Grande. And it was important to them because of the location to the petroglyphs, the high peaks where Mother Earth meets Father Sky. And they would come up here, they would follow spirit ways, they would say prayers, they would make offerings, and they would carve images into the rock. Sometimes it's a form of passageway or a map. Others might be a counting mechanism or clan image. But to many Pueblo people, they say the spirits would leave this world and go on to the next world through these petroglyph images. The Pueblo people call this place the place that people speak about. Belongs to all of us, all Americans, not just today, but future generations. It's a place of respect. It's a place of solitude. It's a place of wonder.